We have evidence to suggest right here on this chart today that Bitcoin could be about to pull off what it did earlier in 2023 when we got this massive price explosion. And if that does end up happening, the speculative targets I've already covered with you guys for these kind of things could put us well above $100,000. So I want to cover that with you in this YouTube video. This has obviously been a very scary time in the market. A lot of people have been very upset by what's been happening. And obviously, if you've been subscribed, you're going to know that we've been right here with you the whole time with those live streams, right when that volatility comes in. But now I think we've seen some of this maturing, and I want to show you what I'm thinking here on both sides, right? I think, as usual, the number one reasons you guys like to come to this YouTube channel is that I'm going to tell you what the bulls are thinking and what the bears are thinking, and I'm not going to care what you think, but I'm going to give you that information so that you can make your own opinion up, right? I'll obviously tell you what I think, but it's very, very important that you get both sides of the story so that you can actually make informed decisions on your own. Now, if we do take a look at this chart, we did see this nice little dip down here into the $58,000 price range, and since then, we saw a good correction. I mean, one of the key things that you guys know I like to see is I like to see quick moves up, right? When we get a quick correction, that to me is evidence that actually the market might be able to hold the low and we might actually be able to trend higher, right? But when we don't get quick reactions, right? When things like this happen, even though we ended up moving up from here anyway, this is typically where I would question the market a little bit more. It was the same thing back here. It was a little bit shaky. It took us some time, and we did eventually recover back up, but they weren't good tests of support. This one is a little bit better, but I do have a problem with the chart because I would have wanted Bitcoin to get higher by this point, and I think that's what actually makes this very, very interesting. Now, before I continue, I do want to highlight to you guys, we've got a phenomenal offer with Blowfin, which is a no KYC exchange available to you guys with the link below. This only runs for like the next week or so, a little bit more than that, where depending on the trading volume that you pull in when you start trading on Blowfin, and it will take you 2 minutes from signing up, even to get your deposit accredited. It's lightning fast. You have a chance to win a Kawasaki motorbike, a Tesla Model 3, or just an Apple Watch as well. Lots and lots of cool prizes here available just for the same trading that you would have otherwise been doing anyway here on Blowfin. So definitely check it out. This is definitely one of the better exchanges that still respect your privacy. So that is absolutely sick. And we've just had a small issue with the studio lighting, but that's all good. And of course, that's going to be there for you guys when you start trading and make your deposit. But let's come back to the market here and talk about this price action because, one of the things that I actually want to show you is a potential kind of fractal setup and just overlay it on top of what Bitcoin is doing right now. And you might actually see something quite shocking, right? And that's why I think that this is quite interesting. If we go ahead and take a look at what happened last time and some of the shocking similarities that we're punching in right now, we'll take a look at this and you might just be mind blown. Bitcoin has done something very, very similar to what it pulled off before, including the test of the downside, right? We can actually go ahead and just reposition this, and it's starting to look very, very similar to what Bitcoin actually pulled off before with that drop down here and then kind of messing around sideways in the range. And this is the thing, is like I said, if we do kind of hang out in our support zones, to me, that's not a good sign. I don't like that. That doesn't give me confidence in the market. But it is what happened last time with this fractal, and so there might be some tolerance if you actually like fractals as well. Now, fractals are a bit of a weird one. A lot of people have different opinions on them. In my experience, they're actually pretty good. In my experience, they're actually pretty dependable. They're definitely something that I like to pay attention to. I won't swear by them. I won't rely on them and stuff like that, but I will definitely take them seriously, and I think that that's what we might have as an opportunity here now, because this market has been marked by certain characteristics that have continued to show up throughout this trend, right? Some of you have already spotted some of them. For example, right, with some of our corrections, this correction right here down to our low was roughly a 22% drop. Right here, again, roughly about 20%. Again, roughly about 21%. So we've had very, very clear patterns, characteristics showing themselves up on these markets. If we measure kind of this drop down to this low, we're now down to 18%. And from the all-time high down to this low, it's a 20% drop, right? So this is going to depend on what you like to see, but me personally, I've been trading these markets for over 7 years now. I actually have found that Bitcoin tends to kind of develop characteristics, and then it actually sticks to them quite well, which is what I think is making this range particularly interesting. Now, obviously, there's no discussion about this price range that can be done properly without acknowledging that this range has been tested extensively, and it's not a good position in the market. We've hit this zone of support a good few times already, and this will depend on how you measure it, but even more than 6 times, you could argue, including getting that fake out here. And when you get these kind of fake outs and you have a subsequent rise to actually break the all-time high, but you don't take it, that's a real sign of weakness, right? I mean, to me, this is an incredibly strong opportunity for the bulls to seize the market and take this thing way higher. And if they don't, then it's kind of like, well, your basketball player or your boxing guy that you're kind of rooting for had everything going in his favor, and he still couldn't get the KO. He still couldn't shoot the ball into the hoop, right? Stuff like that. And you'll be like, well, if he had everything set up in his favor and he still couldn't pull it off, then that's definitely a concerning sign that actually he might not have it in himself. And it's the same thing with this market here. Smash up the likes for another classic horrible analogy on this YouTube channel. That's exactly what you're coming here for. I think that that's exactly what might be happening here, and that's why I don't really like this test as well. But again, it's been a nice amount of time since the last test even happened on this range, which is why I have to expect some sort of a recovery. And if we zoom in, and we will come back to talking about those big price targets in just a minute, but if we zoom in and take a look at where some problems could start coming back in for Bitcoin, I think the best level for Bitcoin to kind of find some resistance, and more importantly for it to flip and start being bullish again, the best level for that is going to be up here at about $67,000. This is a very good price level for Bitcoin. There's a lot of key reversal price action happening here, whether it's big hits of resistance or very nice support bounces and consolidation in between. There's a lot that happens at this price range, so it's going to be the key place that I want to see Bitcoin get up to. But we do have another level kind of just about halfway between where we are now and getting up to that level, and that is going to be right around here at about the $64,000 to $63,000 price zone. You can make this a bigger zone, you can make this a smaller zone, but ultimately it's all the same thing. And I do think that this particular price zone is probably Bitcoin's next stop. I would have to imagine it is, but it could just kind of put Bitcoin in a sideways trading range, which again, if we are looking at that fractal from 2023, well, that's exactly what happened here, right? I mean, Bitcoin established a really nice kind of sideways trading zone. It wasn't actually nice, it was horrible. It was very tough to live through. But, Bitcoin did establish this kind of trading zone and then kind of had its little spike, traded sideways, messed around, and then finally made up its mind and started to travel higher, right? So this is kind of the same setup that Bitcoin could have here if it does end up topping out at $64,000. Now, there are also some other levels of resistance, which I think are a little bit more local, and it could be why Bitcoin has already been struggling here. But I think the number one reason that we haven't seen a bigger move up in terms of continuation is just residual general weakness in this market, right? I think one thing that's very important to be looking at right now is the S&P 500, and we have seen not too much going on. I mean, this has been a relatively quiet week for the S&P 500. Obviously, the S&P 500 reopened with its trading session right here. And since then, we're now nearly done with Wednesday's trading session as well at the time of me recording this. We haven't seen amazing things happen with the S&P 500. We have seen the dollar gain a little bit of ground. It's actually gained quite a bit of ground, so that's definitely a strong sign for the dollar. But, the S&P 500 hasn't really struggled. But Bitcoin itself has been showing a lot of weakness here, and I think it has been suppressed in a lot of ways by that same measure. If we look at Bitcoin's dominance, we saw a big drop, which is also unusual, but we are starting to recover a little bit of that back up now. Some of those altcoin gains bleeding back into Bitcoin and then potentially even out of the market on some of these kind of retracements here. So we've really got to hold this level. I mean, to me, it's actually very easy to invalidate this market now. The beauty of punching in a low like this is now you have an incredibly clear invalidation. Before it happened, you could even argue that anything as low as $56,000, $57,000 is on the cards and Bitcoin could still be bullish. And you're going to remember from my live streams, again, if you are subscribed and regularly watching this channel, that that's actually a key level we were talking about quite a bit. But that's not the case anymore to me, right? I mean, to me, we've basically got to hold this low, and as long as we kind kind of don't punch a lower low than this in, I think Bitcoin could have a chance, but I think that if it dips below it, that is it, right? It's a very, very clear, confident invalidation that I have now. Is it possible that Bitcoin continues to slide lower and then recovers back up? Yes, absolutely. It would be fuckery. It would, it would just be typical market manipulation. But I can't, I can't expect that. I can't bet on that. That's just, if it happens, it's going to happen. It's the risk of being in crypto. But I think from what I have available to me now, this is a very, very clear low. And really, we need to hold this low here because I think it's going to send a very, very clear message to the market if we're not able to hold this box, which stretches from about 60,000 flat up to 61.5, somewhere around there. If we're not able to hold this low, then it's actually going to send a very clear message to the market that, we're not satisfied with the price that we found. There aren't enough buyers ready to step back in. And more importantly, that the sellers aren't done either. And that also could kind of tip the confidence in the market. And speaking of confidence, if we go ahead and take a look at the Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index, yesterday we saw a reading of 30, just 30 flat here on the Fear and Greed Index. Today we're back up to 46. We might see it slide a little bit lower in about 6 hours when this updates, so that's definitely going to be interesting. Ghost, nay, Fry. So I think that's definitely going to be interesting, to see where this Fear and Greed Index goes. But we're definitely quite upset in this market, generally speaking. And you know what? I think, it couldn't be better in terms of the timing. People always get the most bearish, the most scared at these support levels. But for me, I mentioned to you that the invalidation here would be 58. That's, I think, the really hard key invalidation that we shouldn't be kind of getting down to. But I want to be even stricter than that. I, at this point, don't have tolerance for Bitcoin even going below 60K. I think that if we're above 60K, we're still good and we could go sideways. And by the way, this is going to change if we trade here for some time, right? Like, the longer we trade here, the more we're actually fulfilling that fractal, which means that we could be headed back up to 72. But I think that if we do lose this zone, it is going to send a pretty clear message, especially if it happens soon, that this was a bit of a dead cat and we're actually going to be traveling down from here. So I think that's going to be very, very important. But let me go ahead and show you guys a little bit more of that fractal, because I think that's definitely very, very interesting. I think that it opens a lot of very exciting trading opportunities as well. And just a quick reminder for those of you that are interested, you can go ahead and do this in the background while you watch this video on Blowfin. Just email, password, bam, you're in. Super, super quick, and huge prizes available to win just based off your trading volume. So, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that is in addition to the 3.5K in bonuses that you already get by default when you start signing up and trading on Blowfin here, which is absolutely sick. But this zone here is something that I've been speaking to you guys about a lot lately. Again, I'm not the guy that sings the praises about fractals like other people do, but I recognize that they can be valuable, and I'm interested more in the characteristics that they display than what the actual pattern is, right? The characteristic to me is much more important, because in this case, it means that we are actually setting a low, but importantly, a low which was previously resistance, and then we're not actually losing that low, regardless of what actually happened to the market, which shows us that demand is there to defend this particular level. So it's a technical level which keeps getting validated by, just people ready to be to kind of step back into the market. And at the same time, we're also holding the same kind of ceiling, but most importantly, we're doing all of that inside of an uptrend, right? I mean, the uptrend kicked off here at about $15,000, and, it might not look like a lot now, but it's the same thing I was telling you guys back then. If you were here on the YouTube channel back then, you're going to remember this very, very clearly. From the low to the high of this particular range, the market did pull a 2 times gain, okay? A plus 100% profit. So, let's not lose sight of the fact that this was definitely an uptrend, okay? I mean, an uptrend to different people is going to mean different things, but if you double in price, come on, let's get real. That's a pretty substantial price move, and I think that we've got that on our side right now as well. I don't think anyone's debating that we've had a nice uptrend since then, which really, by a lot of different measures, puts us in the exact same trading range, and I think that's what's really compelling for me. A lot of people aren't able to see this, and I don't really know why, but if anything, it only makes me feel more certain about how, about what I'm saying. We are in exactly the same situation now in the market. In fact, the only real difference is that now ETFs are available to buy Bitcoin. Even though they have been selling, to me, it's not concerning. So from a kind of fundamental outlook, It is slightly better. You guys know my opinion on ETFs, so I really don't care. They don't scare me. They don't excite me. But they are a factor, and they are at play now, which they weren't before. So that's interesting. And I think the other thing that's really important, which I was kind of touching on with you guys a lot, is that as soon as we broke out of this range, we had all of this shit to deal with, right? I mean, this was a huge bit of price action throughout 2021 and bits of 2022 where we had so much potential to find resistance, and Bitcoin just blasted straight through it. I mean, again, from the breakout point to the next high that we set, it was a 137% move, right? And if we kind of measure that up here, I can't even fit it on the damn chart. If we look for a 137% move, that puts us at $170,000, and I think that really tells us a lot about where this market could be going if we get a breakout, right? I mean, even if it's not that big, even if it's half of that, right? And instead of 130%, we're only up by 70%, we're still above $120,000 from that breakout point. And I think what's also really interesting is the time frames, right? For me, it's just the similarities of all of this stuff that we're able to see just staring us right in the face. This was a 220-day price range here where we were trading sideways, and from the moment that we entered this particular one until the present day today, we're now up to 120 days. So they're both substantial price ranges, both in terms of time and somewhat in terms of corrections too, because we've already seen that they're quite similar. And I think just what I found very compelling, I think what I found very interesting was just the way that the drop happened. I mean, what we had back here in 2023 was a slow bleed that turned into a very quick sell-off, right? And if we go ahead and look at the present day for Bitcoin and see how that went for Bitcoin here, it's the same damn thing. You can't make this up, right? I mean, we can look at this on the 4-hour time frame to get a slightly better view, but you start off slow and then you intensify, and then bam, you punch in your bottom, right? And again, with Bitcoin, starting off slow, intensifying, punch in the bottom sideways, and then we're up. And I mean, to me, it just says everything, right? Like I said, I'm not looking for a clear-cut copy-paste repetition. What I'm interested in are characteristics of Bitcoin, okay? I think it's unrealistic to say that you need to see the same thing copy-pasted. You're not really going to get that. But what I think is actually quite realistic is to just kind of look at these characteristics and identify that, yeah, I mean, we start off the sell-off slowly, and then the sell-off intensifies. And by the way, I mean, it's very interesting. I mean, the first bit of the sell-off until it really intensifies was about 10%. And then the next bit was, again, about 10%, right? So, and that's something that we covered on the live stream. So, guys, definitely make sure that you are subscribed to this YouTube channel if you do enjoy this content, if you feel like it kind of keeps you level-headed. I always try and remind you guys that, when we do fall down to zones of support, that is just per classic technical theory in trading. That is where you expect support, right? At a support level is where you expect to find support. That's where you expect bounces, and it's also naturally where you expect to see the fear and greed index get to the absolute lowest points. So, as long as you can kind of see these things and not be surprised by them, you're actually going to be quite far ahead of the curve compared to other people, and you're going to be making profits in this market as a result. So I think that's really cool and very much impressive and important here. But again, I think, just the similarities here. You start off slow, intensify, and then really punch in a kind of scary low. Everyone was so fucking terrified here, by the way. I mean, I can show you this on the fear of greed index, by the way. We had that low on the 17th of August, right? Last year. And if we go ahead and look at what happened on the 17th of August here, this was the next day. We went from a reading of 50 to a reading of 37. Yesterday we're even more scared than what happened here. And I think, again, this just really tells us everything we need to know about the current state of the market, and how people are feeling and how similar all of this was to the way that the Bitcoin price bottomed last time. Now, of course, does this mean that I hold the answers and that Bitcoin is going to definitely rise up? Hell no, obviously not. That's definitely not what I'm saying here. And I'm very conscious of the fact that it's not a pretty chart. But at the same time, I'm conscious of the fact that fucking everybody and their grandmother got extremely bearish in the last 48 hours. And for what? All we did was we tested a zone of support. Now, of course, if we do end up losing this zone, like I said, I'm not going to be expecting this zone to be what saves the market. Could we get a small bounce here, a small bounce here and then kind of continue lower? Yes, of course, that's possible. But I think the next key zone in the market is going to be this kind of $52,000 range. But it's so light, it's so unimportant in my opinion, that really I'm going to have to start expecting 48,000 or even 44,000 and down here. I think that these are actually going to be the key price levels on this chart to be looking out for. 44 outlined beautifully right there with this box. It is such a spectacular price level for the market to drop down to, and of course we have price history at this level going all the way back to 2021 with a major reversal coming off here to set brand new all-time highs. We're getting resistance, we're getting support, we're getting major resistance with a nice little fake out here as well to basically the same price level. Look at that. Again, history really does like to rhyme, and that is something which I actually like to use to my advantage. A lot of people, I'm going to leave you with this note, ladies and gents, a lot of people get scared, upset, frustrated during times like this in the market. But you know what? What I have to say about this is that, when you are in situations like right now, you have a lot of price history that you can analyze to kind of see where the market can go. When you're trading up and you're setting brand new all-time highs, yes, it's easy to make money and it's easy for different reasons, but right now you have phenomenal opportunities to actually look at what might happen, right? When you're setting all-time highs, you've never been there before. It's the next idiot's opinion being weighed up just as equally as your opinion, and it puts you in a very difficult position to kind of see where things can go. But if you do have the gift of literally hindsight here, where you can see what's happened in the market before, you can make quite informed decisions. And I think that's actually why I typically tend to find it even a little bit more fun in these kind of ranges, because if you can play these kind of ranges well, then when the all-time highs do come back, and of course I think most of us agree that it will come back, when that does happen, you're actually going to be in a very, very strong position, and that to me is critical. So there you go, ladies and gents. I hope you have enjoyed this one. There is more that I want to talk to you guys about, including the mt. Gox stuff. We've already covered it extensively in the live streams, but I want to make a dedicated video about it as well, because there is a lot going on there. If you want to see that, let me know about that in the comment section down below. But with that, ladies and gents, I hope you have enjoyed this video. Check out the beautiful links to the offers below in the description, and please do keep in mind that certain countries are going to have certain regulations that will not allow you to use these platforms, and if you're banned from using them by law, then of course you can't use any of these links here. But if you're allowed to, then crack on. It is absolutely sick. You're getting huge bonuses. Bybit is giving you up to $30,000 when you begin trading using my link below. And those of you in Europe can actually use the Bybit debit card, which is absolutely sick. I've been using it for quite a while now, all over the world. And it is amazing. Blows my mind to be able to spend my crypto with a debit card in the real world. So if that sounds cool to you, just like it does to me, then check that out as well. I really hope you've enjoyed this one, ladies and gents. You know what to do if you have. I'm going to go pick up that camera that fell down now, and I'll see you all in the next one. Cheers.